So welcome, everybody. We're going to start with a few minutes of sitting. So I'll ring the bell and we'll begin. So Maria, you might want to spotlight me. So interesting. So we have Zoom bombers dropping in, still a problem in our technologies, right? But anyway, welcome to everyone who's tuned in online. And I'm really, really happy to be here with you today doing inquiry. So I'm going to start us off with a Zen koan, and you can see maybe how it relates to what I'll talk about by the end, and also how the Zoom bombers might relate to what I'm talking about. So a student said to Master Ichu, "Please write for me something of great wisdom." Master Ichu picked up his brush and wrote one word, attention. The student said, "Is that all?" The master wrote, attention, attention. The student became irritable. "That doesn't seem profound or subtle to me." In response, Master Ichu wrote simply, attention, attention, attention. In frustration, the student demanded, "What does this word attention mean?" Master Ichu replied, "Attention means attention." So I like to think that this word that is described in this koan, attention, is our appamada sort of logo, our mindfulness, which in Japanese is nen, but which in the Pali canon is appamada. So this means in the Japanese character, there's a symbol. It's two characters that are put together to make this one character that means attention, mindful care. And that is the character for Shin, the heart, mind, whole being. And this character that comes up like a roof that means into this present moment, this era, this moment, this time. So that's bringing your whole being into this present moment is our way of showing our attention. So last week, Flint talked a bit about Dogen's four embraces of offering, kind speech, harmony in action, intimacy or relationality. So these four methods of social relations or elements of sociality are mentioned in the Lotus Sutra. They go way back, probably predated even the Lotus Sutra. As Nishijima translated these in Dogen Shobogenzo, which is Fascal 45, the Bodhisattva Shishobo, first is free giving. He's going to define this. Free giving means not being greedy. Not being greedy means not coveting. Not coveting means, in everyday language, not courting favor. And he goes on to say, what is hard to change is the mind of living beings. By starting with a gift, we begin to change the mental state of living beings, after which we resolve to change them until they attain the truth. At the outset, we should always make use of free giving. This is why the first of the 6 paramitas, the practices of perfection, is dana paramita, the perfection of giving. The bigness or smallness of mind is beyond measurement, and the bigness or smallness of things is beyond measurement. But there are times when mind changes things, and there is free giving in which things change mind. Second, kind speech means when meeting living beings, first of all, to feel compassion for them and to offer caring and loving words. We should praise those who have virtue and pity those who lack virtue. Through love of kind speech is gradually nurtured. Whether in defeating adversaries or in promoting harmony among gentlefolk, kind speech is fundamental. And then he talks about the impact of that. To hear kind speech spoken to us directly makes the face happy and the mind joyful. To hear kind speech indirectly etches an impression in the heart and the soul. Remember, kind speech arises from a loving mind and heart, and the seed of a loving mind and heart is compassion. We should learn that kind speech has the power to turn around the heavens. It is not merely the praise of ability. Third, helpful conduct means utilizing skillful means to benefit living beings, high or low. For example, by looking into the distant and near future and employing expedient means to benefit them. People have taken pity on stricken turtles and taken care of sick sparrows. When they saw the stricken turtle and the sick sparrow, they did not seek any reward from the turtle and the sparrow. They were motivated solely by helpful conduct itself. Stupid people think that if we put the benefit of others first, our own benefit will be eliminated. This is not true. Helpful conduct is the whole Dharma. It universally benefits self and others. So we should benefit friends and foes equally, and we should benefit ourselves and others alike. If we realize this state of mind, the truth that helpful conduct neither regresses nor deviates will be helpfully enacted even in grass, trees, wind, and water. We should solely endeavor to save the foolish. Good advice. Cooperation, this is the fourth, what Flint talked about as intimacy, means not being contrary. This was such an interesting take on this sense of cooperation. It is not being contrary to oneself and not being contrary to others. The task of cooperation means, for example, concrete behavior, a dignified attitude, and a real situation. In other words, it's not an abstract concept. The relations between self and others are, depending on the occasion, without limit. Kanchi says, the sea does not refuse water, therefore it is able to realize its greatness. Mountains do not refuse earth, therefore they are able to realize their height. Enlightened rulers do not hate people, therefore they are able to realize a large following. Remember, the sea not refusing water is cooperation. Remember also that water has the virtue of not refusing the sea. For this reason, it is possible for water to come together to form the sea, and for the earth to pile up to form mountains. Nishijima explains that this word for cooperation, it's translated as cooperation, means literally identity of task, or sharing the same aim, or more colloquially, being in the same boat. This is much more obvious to us today in some ways because of the global nature of our circumstances and crises. We are in the same planetary boat, and clearly we need to cooperate to keep it afloat. So that's the basis in Nishijima's translation, anyway, of this set of four embraces. Approaching these ideas from a contemporary perspective, recently I've read a new book called Stand Out of Our Light, Freedom and Resistance in the Attention Economy. It's by James Williams, who was a former Google advertising executive who left his high-tech job to get a PhD in philosophy at Oxford. He became so troubled by the ethical consequences of the decisions that were being made at these large tech platforms. So in the book, he presents the concept, which I think was first described in the book Peak Mind, that attention takes different forms, like three forms of light. The first he calls spotlight, which is our focus on the task at hand. So this is what we commonly think of as attention. I'm paying attention to what I'm working on. Starlight is the aspiration that guides us, guides our behavior, and reflects our deepest intention. Daylight is the broad awareness in which everything manifests as it really is. So the distractions in our lives interfere with, displace, or even destroy these three forms of light. This is the premise of the title of the book. Producers of technological distractions deliberately obscure all three forms of light with powerful psychological hooks to keep us engaged and often outraged. Our sense of the task at hand, our spotlight, is interrupted by notifications, internet rabbit holes, clickbait, things to buy. Our starlight, our aspiration, is obscured and derailed by clouds of competing demands for our aspirational attention: entertainment, social media, online debates, doubt, bewilderment by the array of it all. Our compromised sense of daylight makes it impossible to even recall what we most want or even what to want in a fog of information, disinformation, distrust, dismay, despair at the state of the world, cruelty, and ignorance. Even when our own world, our own particular world, the world we're inhabiting right now, seems to be going well. So in the book, Williams does not offer much help in the way of solutions to our sea of distractions and fog of confusion, much of which has been cynically fostered by corporate interests, political manipulators, and malign spreaders of disinformation and manufactured outrage. But I was encouraged because we have a powerful antidote to these toxic forces in the 3 foundations of Zen: the practice of meditation, which provides a space apart from the distractions of screens and the demands of everyday roles and responsibilities to pause and reflect, to gain a clearer comprehension of what our life is about, moment to moment, here and now. The second foundation is ethical conduct, which guides our social relating in ways that are upright, dignified, honest, trustworthy, and caring. This is the basis for mutual care. The third foundation is wisdom, which provides a compass for discerning what is beneficial, wholesome, conducive to genuine happiness, and leading to liberation. This comes from deep insight into the truths of the Buddha's teachings, especially about the causes of suffering and its cessation. In other words, our Zen practice is a necessary protection for our attention in an environment filled with hostile dangers to it. Dogen's 4 embraces, in turn, require a clear, free, unobstructed, and undistracted mind and heart. We might ponder for ourselves the extent to which our technologies actually provide, as Flint mentioned, consolation, contentment, comfort, and delight. So we must now make our home in this technologically permeated environment. Even preppers going off the grid use solar generators to get online where they research survival skills, shop for provisions, and connect with other preppers for support and guidance. So what can we do? We should take good care of our practice, our path, and our vow, and we can support each other in that aspiration. Through the marvels of technology, we can connect online to practice together and to support each other. No one wants to abolish that capacity. Now we must become wise stewards of our attention. One teacher famously said, we should pay attention to what we pay attention to, which I think is such great advice. The Buddha taught his disciples to guard the mind, guard the sense doors. Because we've evolved so recently out of conditions of information lack, we're kind of dazzled by its abundance. But like a starving person at a lavish feast, we can't stop filling our plates, grabbing bits and pieces of this and that and stuffing ourselves. This is not a healthy way to live. We need to take mindful care of our minds and hearts. What we consume to keep them healthy is just as important as our mindful consumption of food, our mindful care of our relationships, our mindful attention to our work in the world. Just like comprehending the seduction of constant advertising for junk food, the false economy of convenience, the environmental damage of corporate food production, the denial of harmful consequences in mindless overeating, we must also be aware of the allure of distractions that take our attention away from our work, which, as Mary Oliver explained, is loving the world. The word sati, often translated as mindfulness in the Buddha's teachings, literally translated, as we've often taught, means to recall. What we recall is not only who we are, but where our aspiration can direct our attention, our light in the world, where we are going. In the intensive, Todd talked about this in relation to the 4 Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes of loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. The Buddha taught the practice of the Brahma Viharas as simply radiating these qualities in all directions. They do not require an object, worthy or unworthy, any more than sunlight does. Their practice is not confined to meditation or contemplation. Rather, they are simply radiated through everything you think, say, or do. Every thought, word, text message, emoji, email, tweet, gesture, facial expression, body language, Zoom appearance, and nonverbal communication, as well as every action. We are always conveying something. What is it that we are actually radiating? The corollary to this practice, I've often taught, is to sit experiencing the ways in which we are receiving from all directions at all times loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. We are constantly bathed in it, whether we're aware of that or not. We sit together in sati to recall our attention to what matters, to loving the world and everything in it, including our own bumbling selves. Who we are is precisely the light of our attention, our spotlight attention on the task at hand, our starlight attention to our guiding aspiration, our daylight attention aware of the whole cosmos and what there is to want, be, and do in it. The corrective to the destruction of our attention, both individually and collectively, is our practice, our path, and our vow. This vow takes time and effort, willingness and persistence. It also takes courage in the face of the many forces competing for that scarce resource. So let's use it well. At the end of Sunday service, we're offered an admonition. Let us be respectfully reminded, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by, and with it our only chance. Each of us must strive to awaken. Be aware. Do not squander our life. So sharing this moment of our life together, let's hear your questions or reflections, recalling that this inquiry is how we bring forth the Dharma together. I'm very interested in what you're attending to and how it's moving in you. So I think you can raise your hand if you. Judith.
Oh. Having been in Austin 2 weeks ago, I had a sort of, well, I'm calling it a breakthrough experience for whatever. You know, these things don't have words, aren't easily expressed in words, as you know. And I'm sitting here today falling asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And trying
we can't hold on to anything.
and struggling very, very hard not to judge that, okay, I'm sleepy today.
Sleepy Buddha.
A sleepy Buddha, yes. Yes. So I want it to be okay for me to be sleepy while I'm with you today.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful to be here again, as always. Thank you so much, Peg.
That's another koan where the master was sick, almost dying. And his disciple came and said, "How is it with you? How are you today, master?" And the master said, "Sun-faced Buddha, moon-faced Buddha." Right?
Yeah. I think I have the moon and the sun mixed up today, though.
Yeah, we often say if you haven't fallen asleep on the cushion in Zazen, you probably haven't been practicing very long.
Oh, well. I have to say it hasn't been quite this much of a struggle for a long time. But and then I'm reminding myself, this too will pass,
It's usually, sleepiness is usually a sign, can be a sign of several things. One, you're actually genuinely sleep deprived and tired.
Mm-hmm.
One, you're completely and utterly relaxed. And And that's when it becomes clear how much you've been trying to do, how much you've been doing. So you slow down, you stop, and you feel that tiredness overtake you, And sometimes that tiredness in zazen is itself a distraction from something disturbing that's starting to emerge. So maybe a memory or a physical sensation or something, and it's a protection that our mind throws up. Yeah. So that's worth exploring. It's worth investigating.
Yes. Okay. I shall be about that during this next week.
Good. So Joel.
Hi, Peg. It's wonderful to see you again.
Wow, it's great to see you.
It was wonderful to see you this weekend, and I really enjoyed your comments about Todd's talk from the intensive, which was very moving to me and very powerful.
Yeah.
I want to ask about you. You were describing the three modes of attention: spotlight, daylight, and starlight. And I have a strong experience of this spotlight sense that is present with me all the time, and mostly I think of it in terms of kind of things that I'm missing because I'm not looking straight at them, or that sort of way. I feel a kind of
Peripheral FOMO.
exactly peripheral perfect. And I have a sense of daylight and awareness, appreciative awareness of the world. But what I don't have, or what I want to ask about is for you to spend some time talking about starlight awareness. I feel like I don't have the, I don't know. I just don't have a good understanding of that, and I really want more of it. So,
Yeah.
can you talk more about that?
Yes, of course. I talk about it endlessly. I talk about it all the time, actually, but looks like other topics. It's that what I would call like the North Star, which you can always orient yourself toward. We have various descriptions of it, the Bodhisattva vow, the precepts, but it's, and sometimes Flint will talk about it as your inmost request. And we have a sense of disconnect when we're not in alignment with that deepest heartfelt aspiration. So we get unraveled, we get disoriented, we don't know what we're supposed to do, and sometimes when we are absolutely in complete alignment with that aspiration, what we do in a situation will look surprising to the other people in the situation, right? And yet it'll be appropriate to the situation. So if we're trying to think, what should I do now? What should I do now? What's the right thing to do? We're not attuned to that deep, deep aspiration. It's what keeps our feet on the path, because we have a sense that the construction of this tradition is really designed to help us stay in alignment with our deepest aspiration and to express and manifest that in the world. So it's a very, to me, very, very effective kind of design, because in sitting in this open, spacious awareness, we have the opportunity then to connect with that starlight, that deep aspiration. So when you have a child, you have a heartfelt, natural aspiration for that child to be well, to be happy, to be safe, right? Nobody has to tell you, a parent should actually hope for their child to be well and happy and safe. It's just all of your efforts are in alignment with that aspiration. So I think in our practice, we're continually exploring what is the shape of that aspiration. It's not an abstract concept. It's not even probably something most people can put in words, but they can tell when they're in alignment with it, everything sort of points the same way. And when you're cross purposes with it, you kind of tell, oh yeah, I told that friend I was busy, I just didn't want to get together, or whatever. You sense a little disconnect. There's an uncomfortable or just a little bit of distress that creates, right? So while we're following that North Star, and I think when we're young, that North Star is usually represented by a parent, or maybe some idea about God, and it's external to us, right? It's something we're aiming toward, or orienting outside of ourselves. And this is the backward step that Dogen talks about, to shine the light within. So maybe your deepest aspiration is to work with injured animals, maybe your deepest heartfelt aspiration is to help the homeless. That's all manifestation of your Buddha nature in the world. Does that make sense? Almost certainly, I'm just guessing, but almost certainly that aspiration is not make piles and piles of money. Right? It's almost certain that that's not really your heartfelt aspiration. So people have a lot of markers that are themselves distractions from that true nature. So this is what James Williams discovered in his work at Google. He was not following that starlight, right? And what he saw around him was disturbing enough that he decided, I have to find out more about this. I have to find out more about the nature of attention. And he did it through philosophy. There are lots of people pursuing that in psychology and neuroscience and other domains. I mean, there's lots and lots of books coming out now about this and about the distraction economy and all of that. But I like that frame for it, because there's this larger daylight within which things become visible. And if that's occluded, then it's even hard to tell what you should aspire to, right? So people get caught in this materialistic consumer, what do they call it? The hedonic treadmill. They're continuing to try and find things that give them pleasure, and they're caught, right? They've lost the starlight, they've lost the daylight, because they don't even know what's an appropriate thing to want, right? So that's what I think of as that sort of starlight by which we see, oh, it's really important to take care of people who are suffering. That's really important. A new boat, not that important, right? So I think that I think meditation is a wonderful practice for getting realigned with what your starlight is. See, oh, the way I'm spending my time does not reflect my deepest aspiration. Oh, I see. Where I'm directing my attention does not reflect my deepest aspiration. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You should be a mute.
Thank you, Maria.
Well,
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Peg, for your teaching. It's so rich. I'm so glad that this is being recorded, because I will come back to it. I think at some point, perhaps in the context of offering, you mentioned receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had shoulder surgery, and I clearly need help, right? And it's been wonderful. People have been driving me to PT appointments and bringing food, because I can't drive and I can't cook much, right? And what a gift. It has just, it's just it's brought so much joy and good company. That's really what I've loved, is the good company. And at the same time, I've noticed that I've been kind of driven by independence. And it's as if, so I have a drive towards it. And it's like, just because I can do something, and it's my own message, it's not coming from anybody else, I have to do it.
Mm.
And so during the retreat at Open Door this weekend, it was live. someone asked me if I needed help with my couple, like shopping bag. I said, no, that's okay. I can do it myself. And I could. And this very kind person said, I'm going to do this for you. And it was like an opening that on some level, I knew it and I've experienced before. But I think maybe because of this situation, I experienced it so much more deeply. It was an opening into letting people help is a gift. And it's an act of generosity.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to share that because I'm feeling it so profoundly. And it touches a real vulnerability in me.
We have barriers to receiving, right? And some of them are cultural, this idea that we should be independent and that we shouldn't need other people, and we should be strong. Yeah.
Right. Especially, I think, for women of our era.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're the ones who help others. We don't need help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a kind of, I feel a kind of defiance, like, no, you're not going to tell me that I can't do this because I'm a woman, right?
Yeah. So you're seeing all this conditioning that surrounds the
Right.
receiving of care, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all going to need care from others, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the condition of living.
Mm-hmm.
So the more we can offer others the opportunity, because we know how heart opening it is to care for others. We know how heart opening it is to be generous.
Right.
And
Right.
now we're providing the occasion for others to have that experience.
Right. Right. And it didn't occur to me how stingy I was being.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
It seems backwards.
So it seems backwards, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me voice that because that's part of the learning.
Well, it's a wonderful teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. For everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good luck in your recovery.
Thank you. 1 week I should be able to drive. Yay.
Hey. But you might still let people drive you somewhere.
I may, and I will still need help.
Yes, great.
I need help.
That's great. Yeah.
We have Kathy next. Yeah.
I'm noticing that I'm feeling a lot of gratitude here lately. I'm so thankful for inquiry. I'm so thankful to be with you here. And for what Kathy just expressed and for Joel's question. Joel's question just really landed profoundly with me in your response with it. I guess the reason I raised my hand is noticing about me paying attention, noticing how I listen, or noticing how I don't listen is really more the subject here of
that shows awareness though. And otherwise we're just blundering along, not listening, but you're aware that there are times when you're not listening.
Yeah, just like in the middle of something I'm interested in, start making a list about something that's not, not even what I'm interested in at that moment is, and
we've been trained to be distractible.
Yeah, and when you said distraction economy, I was just like, oh my God, there's a distraction economy.
Oh yeah.
And, I hadn't even thought of that before. And I was just like, wow, that's making a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
I guess, like part of the focus of this is doing some stuff with the Clearness Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And how there's like kind of really training to listen, and how, I'm noticing that my companions in there, like both from what I've shared when they give feedback back, I'm just like, oh, I said some certain word like, 7 times throughout a 10-minute, talk, and be very surprised that that word was like said that often.
Mhm.
And then when it's my turn to be the listener, then not feeling like I'm capable of doing what my companions who've had more training are doing. And just sort of noticing that even in like they're taking notes the whole time and in their kind of listening role, and I'm not, that's new to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the training and listening then, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that you're doing it because you're gonna hone that capacity, and with experience and practice, you're gonna have that depth of listening that you aspire to. That's one of your starlights, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because I really want to, it sounds like such a silly sentence of I'd like to be in the present moment.
You don't have an alternative, actually.
Well, I have alternative attempts that are pretty consistent or constant, but reality always wins.
Well, we're either in the present moment distracted and unaware of it, or we're in the present moment and aware of it, but we're nevertheless in the present moment. We don't have an alternative. Yeah. It's as with taking a picture, it's that moment. It's just that moment. There isn't, you're going to take the picture that's in front of you.
Yeah.
If it's your foot because you're just adjusting the camera, like.
And there is no recreating that.
No.
The light's never going to be the same. The moment's never going to be the same. There is no, going back on that at all.
That's what's in the caution, time swiftly passes by and with it our only chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's of course brought home to me quite vividly in watching my granddaughter growing up, like this 3.5 moment is never going to come again because now she's 3 3/4. Now she's going to be 4, in just a couple of weeks. And I'm thinking, how did this all happen so fast? It's like a speeded up movie,
Yeah. My neighbors have a puppy, and it's like, I met the puppy at 8 weeks old. Now the puppy is like 12 weeks old, and it's a completely different puppy.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really growing, and
our moments are like that. And they're not even moments because they're in the stream of things, right? So you're just attending to what you attend to in that stream. In that stream, it's like a big flood, right? There's a sofa going by, there's a dresser, there's a fish swimming past you, there's a branch. And what are you paying attention to?
Mm-hmm.
What are you noticing in that stream?
Yeah. So, thanks a lot, Peg.
Thank you, Cassie. Jessica.
I'm
So
really
good to see you.
so good to see you. I'm really intrigued by what you just said, that we've been trained to be distractible. Can you say more about that? How I mean, apart from social media, how have we been trained to be distractible?
Well, even before that, with television and cutting stories up to interrupt them with commercials.
Yeah.
On radio, even interrupting a story to advertise something. This goes pretty far back. The way our attention is different. Even in print newspapers, a story will be stopped and then started on another page where there's other advertising, right? So we've been conditioned all along to be distractible. And this is why teachers have fits, right? Pay attention to your work, pay attention to your work. But everything in our environment is working to distract us. And some of it is intentional, and some of it is just the fact that we live in a rich environment. So if you're out in nature, there's all kinds of things to pay attention to, right?
Yeah.
So, but we have been conditioned through, and particularly through technologies, deliberately, we've been conditioned to be distractible because that brings ad revenue. So, it's highly motivated. And as a result, at least I saw a big shift in my students, even before I retired, where they didn't have the capacity to pay attention to something for any extended period of time.
Mm.
So I actually had a student say in one of my classes, and mind you, I only had upper division students, juniors and seniors. This is a senior student, and she said, you know, my roommate grew up without any technology and she can read a book. I can't read a book. I wish I could. And I thought this was stunning to me. You know, she's at the end of her college career and she can't read a book.
Yeah, how did she get that far?
Well, that was my question. And I found out a little bit when I said to a colleague, I don't understand it. My students always say in my course evaluations that they wish we could have discussed the books that I assign more. But every time I would ask them, you know, a question about the reading, this is crickets, you know, like, do you want to talk about these themes or, you know, just crickets. And my colleague said to me, oh, when they say they wish you would discuss the book in class, they mean, would you tell them what it's about?
So they don't have to read it. Yeah.
So I thought this was very telling to me, but there's a lot of this because, you know, that kids are growing up distracted by their phones and by social media.
Yeah, and so much I'm noticing for myself, so much of it is visual because I can listen to a story for hours, but I also can't, I've lost the ability to read a book.
It's true. And you know that 80% of our cognitive processing is our visual field. So that's so much of our awareness is tied up in the visual. At least for those of us who have vision, you know, it's not true for blind people, it's more auditory and other senses, but that's why any little bit of movement catches our attention.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. And so I think people have to be quite vigilant about turning off notifications because that jerks their attention away. And then there's a cognitive cost and coming back and getting reoriented to where you are. And more people are not willing to pay that cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
End up going down some rabbit holes. And the next thing you know, reading about whatever, the Swiss Guard or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
That's why I thought it was really good advice to pay attention to what we're paying attention to. Because that's a sort of a doable inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
You are welcome. Well, good to see you. Rosemary.
Peg, so nice to see you and thank you. And it was so nice to meet you as well. So my question is about the Brahmavihara equanimity. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So it's not a state you jump to. When you have radiated loving kindness, when you have also felt compassion for the suffering beings of the world and the commitment to their relief from suffering, and you've also participated in experiencing empathetic joy for the happiness that others are experiencing, you've moved through all these emotion states, right? Or these experiences, human experiences, you arrive at this sense of equanimity, which is the ability to hold everything. And I think of it, my sister described this in a kind of interesting way where she said, it's like being the pole in the center of a field and everybody's doing everything they're doing, running around, but you're holding that center. And there's a sense of steadiness in it because you're not rocked by waves of conditioning, right? And you're not caught up in emotions that take you out of your connection with others or your present moment experience. So when the Buddha talked about the advantages of dispassion, which is sort of the ally of equanimity, he wasn't saying don't have feelings, but he was helping us recognize the ways in which we get tangled up and really lose our sense of our bearings when we get emotional. So there's a kind of liberation when we're not tangled up in reactive emotionality. It's not, it doesn't mean you're not going to be devastated and sad when you lose someone you love. It means you're not going to pile on top of it a bunch of conditioned thrashing around and expectations of yourself and others that aren't really part of that genuine experience. So when my mother died, which was very impactful, lots of people came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, and you must be devastated." And I made a vow to myself that I was going to pay very close attention to what I was actually experiencing, rather than what other people expected me to experience, or what even I expected me to experience. And so there were all these rich and complex gifts that included relief, that included, some sense of closure, that included, there was just this complex set of moving, ongoing, flowing emotions that came out of our complex relationship. So the equanimity was the capacity to look at that flow and not believe any of it as the total story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like maybe filtering out some of those expectations.
Just bracketed them. Like, so many people expected me to feel a certain way or to express grief in a certain way. And those expectations can be quite a source of suffering in themselves, even though people think they're being helpful or consoling. So it's a question of attunement in the relationship. Does the person actually need consoling? Are they actually, inviting that connection? Or are you simply displacing your anxiety onto the person through, these social gestures?
Yeah. I recently had a situation where I was feeling upset about something and it was hurtful, but I didn't think that it was about the thing that had happened. And I decided to try to include everyone in the world that might be having this same kind of reaction and suffering the same way, and receive all of that in, and then including my own suffering at the time. And I have to remind myself, because when I do that receiving, then I often don't remember to include myself. So
that's very important.
And then sending out love to everyone that suffered in this way, including myself. And that was a big help. And so
that's the practice, to recognize, oh, this is a common human sensation. And there, all of the others, I'll do that when I do meta practice. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I have some sort of whammies or something, I'll do meta practice for myself. So I'm awake and I wish I could be asleep and I'm worried about stuff. And then I think about all the other people who are awake right now because they lost their job, because their daughter's on drugs, because, whatever, their son was in a car accident, all the reasons that people are lying awake at night. And I feel this sort of communion, right? So I send metta to all the people who are awake at night, just like I am. So that can be quite helpful because it connects you and settles you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you are welcome. Penelope.
And I know we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to say, when you were talking about the distractions for us and how prevalent they are in the world, I know when I was 18, I read the book, The Affluent Society. Mm-hmm. And that changed my life because I still remember vividly. That was the first time I realized that the corporations were manipulating us with the planned obsolescence. And it was just like a veil went up that, so talk about a long time. I mean, it's just been building. And then when, like you say, the internet came along,
Yeah. You see that the same companies, corporations that are selling war material are also selling the rebuilding and reconstruction after war. It's like both ends of the spectrum that they're holding, you know. So I think reclaiming our attention is a revolutionary act. It is an act of resistance.
And that's another, you brought up so many good things today when you talked about don't be contrary, because as an artist, I've always been contrary. You know, I've always been pushing against the norm. Or so it's you know, it's that edge that's what makes you have art or makes you make art. You know, if you weren't on the edge, you wouldn't be making and have anything to say.
But I don't think Gauguin was really referring to creative expression. He was referring to our relationships with each other.
Yes, but see that, in other words, what it spoke to me was, oh, maybe my contouriness has not been loving and sometimes. See, in other words, like,
yeah,
it's reframed it for me. It said like, well, wait a minute. No, when you just thought you were being contrary and it was good reaction, maybe it was hurtful to some people.
Yeah, it can be a fixed view like anything else. And that is something that Buddha did really teach in opposition to fixed views. So if you have a fixed stance like that, I will be contrary. Sometimes you've had to do it to protect your independence of mind. But then, you know, as we mature, we realize nobody's really interfering with your independence of mind. You own that.
Exactly. But thank you for bringing that up. It was
okay. Now we have to stop, I see. At the end of our time, but so great to see you.
Good to see you.
We'll do our last chant as we recognize the self-centered dream partly as composed of our distractions. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering. Holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you. It's been such a great pleasure being with you today. And I love this process of inquiry and the wonderful questions you brought. Thanks to everybody who came forward. It was really a delight.
Thank you so much, Peg. Thank you. And thank you all so much for being here and creating this wonderful space that we have. And as you all know, Appamada's programmes, Appamada and its programmes are supported by all of your generosity and all the ways that you contribute. And if you'd like to offer dana to teachers such as Peg and Flint and other teachers, I can see Laurie and Joel are here this evening. And oh no, it's not this evening, is it? It's it's your afternoon. It's my evening. and Todd and to other events at Appamada. Please do go to the website at appamada.org/contribute, and there you'll see opportunities to offer dana. And you'll also, if you check out the calendar while you're there, there's lots of wonderful events on there that you're all welcome to come and see what they're about. So thank you all so much. And if you'd like to, oh, sorry, Peg.
I just said thank you, Maria.
Oh, thank you, Peg. Yeah. And if you'd like to continue to meet and share, please do join myself for a further 25 minutes and on the virtual porch, and we'll carry on the conversation that Peg's begun. So thank you all so much.